Farmers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. On the show, Ron interviews guests to help inform professional drivers just like you about the importance of things like human trafficking to sex addiction to how to overcome the impossible odds on the way to success. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com.
Welcome in on a Wednesday night. We're live on May the 3rd, 2023. This is Taillights with the Baums. And now here's your host, Angie Baum.
Welcome back, everybody. So glad to be here. We are in Texas. And tonight I've got a friend of mine named Timothy who's going to be on the show. And Timothy, I was going to you've been in the trucking industry on and off for a very long time. You want to come in and just kind of tell everybody a little bit about you and how long you've been in the trucking industry?
Well, as a commercial driver's license holder since 1988, but I've been around trucks my entire life. I was driving trucks out on the farm when I was 12, 13 years old, and I drove trucks in the Army also.
So did my husband. That's how he learned how to drive trucks, was in the Army. He did that as well. Now, when you started driving the trucks in the Army, is that kind of what got you like, this could be a really good permanent job for me? Well,
I always knew I wanted to be a truck driver because where I grew up in Portales, New Mexico, trucking was the thing. We had Welch Trucking, we had Jody Ray Trucking, and, that's where I hung out. And I got a part-time job when I was 13 years old at Coach and Coach Truck Stop. I would fuel the trucks, clean the windows, bump the tires, check the batteries, and I would do that for tips. And then I would ride my bicycle out to another truck stop called the Highway 70 Truck Stop, and I would do the same thing out there. And, 13 years old, you're making $60, $80 a week, you're doing pretty good. And it was all on tips, and I learned things from truck drivers.
Okay, that is so cool. I mean, so being a young teenager, working at the truck stops, learning the trucking industry from that perspective, and then actually becoming a trucker, I mean, talk about coming full circle. That is so cool.
Yeah, the guys would teach me things about their trucks. They, and they had 2 sticks, 1 stick, 13 speeds, 18 speeds, 5 and 4s, 4 and 4s. And I knew how to drive all of those by the time I was 15 years old.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I actually have a 1971 white Freightliner that has a 4 and 4 transmission in it.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, I've been restoring it. I drove it all over Texas and New Mexico for quite a long time. And then I parked it. I stripped it down. I've already painted it. And I'm going to have to go completely through the wiring and all that.
Oh, there's nothing better than a Peterbilt, especially the older models, those are some of my favorites. I don't think anything beats a Peterbilt.
What I would really like to find is about a 79 to an 80 model 362.
Oh, yeah.
I love those trucks.
Oh, my dogs are misbehaving tonight. I'll tell you what. I bought them some toys today, and they're fighting over them. Now, not only have you been trucking, but you've also been a trainer, and you shared kind of a funny story of one training that you had where when you got done with them, you were like, maybe training's not for me. You want to tell everybody a little bit about that story?
Yeah, I was driving for J.H. Ware out of Fulton, Missouri. This was back in the 80s. And I'd been driving with them for a long time. And they said, man, you know, you're doing a pretty good job. And, you know, we've got a guy that we need to do some training. Would you be willing to train him? And I said, yeah. And the guy was older than me, talked the talk, walked the talk. And I thought, well, this would be easy beans. And they were going to give me an extra 10 cents a mile. And I was eating it up. And so we were leaving Jefferson City, Missouri, and I told him, I'm going to let you drive. And so we took off, and it started raining. And as we got into St. Louis, there on I-70, the dude started panicking. And he stopped that truck. And, you know, in St. Louis, people don't stop anyway. It doesn't matter. They don't slow down. They don't stop. And it was raining hard. And he stopped that truck. And he's like, ah. And boy, and I popped them brakes, and I said, get out of that seat. And I got him over there in the other seat, and he was still panicking. I got to the truck stop. I called dispatch, and I said, he is at the truck stop. Y'all do what you want with him.
Oh, my goodness.
But I mean, he locked that truck down, you know, and, you know, it's like, wow. But I've trained other drivers since then, but now I don't let them drive right off the bat. I get a feel for them first.
That's smart. Do you know, did he ever finish trucking? Did he stay in trucking, or did he get out? It just wasn't for him.
I have no idea. I do know that J.H. Ware, they got him a bus ticket home. That's all I know. They didn't leave him stranded. They did get him a bus ticket, and they sent him home.
Yeah.
But he didn't drive for them.
Oh, gosh. I mean, you know, trucking's not for everybody. But, yeah, when you get into some of those cities like St. Louis, and that's where I'm from, or Chicago or Atlanta, you know, and you get into that traffic, it's scary.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I was training a young man last year. I had blown the engine in my truck. And so I was in a company truck, and they asked me if I would be willing to do some training. So I was training, and the young man was doing good, but I got to noticing that he just wasn't looking ahead far enough. And then I got to noticing that he was squinting. And I said, do you see that traffic stopped up there ahead of you? What traffic? And I said, oh, okay. So he says, oh, the sun is in my eyes. And I said, okay. I said, well, I'm looking out. So I let it go for another day or two, and I kept noticing that he had some issues. And it was a combination of simply not paying attention, and he couldn't see. And so I had to put him out of the driver's seat. I didn't disqualify him. I took him back to the company, and I said, do not let him drive again until he goes and gets his eyes checked.
Oh, yeah.
And they ignored me, and he had 3 accidents in a month and a half.
Oh, my goodness. And think if they had listened to you, it could have been prevented probably.
Yeah, and I had this big pamphlet that I was filling out, and he could go down the road pretty good. He still was weak on his backing up, you know, but I was working with him on that. But I told him, do not let Jesus drive until he goes and gets his eyes checked. And the telltale sign for them should have been when he hit the mechanic's pickup in the yard. Yeah, maybe. So, and when I went in and he was down there, they were showing me pictures. He was in Corpus Christi, and he took out a fire hydrant and some other stuff. And the safety guy was looking at me. He says, don't say it, Tim. Don't say it. I said, say what? He says, I know what you're going to say. And about that time, the general manager walked in. I said, I told you guys. I told you so. I told you so. And, you know, they're like, man, don't you have a load to go haul? I said, yeah, I'm fixing to leave, but I just wanted to say I told you so.
Oh, that's good.
And then
that is funny.
The next young man that I trained, his name was Mexib, and he was originally from Africa. A very intelligent young man, a natural truck driver. He walked out of Somalia, crossed the desert and all that, and made it to Israel with his mother, and then they made it to America. Did not start driving a vehicle until he was 21 years old, and then he went to truck driving school. He paid attention to everything I told him, and he is going to be a very good truck driver.
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah. He every time he has a question, he always calls me.
See, that's smart. You know, I love it when they, you know, reach out and ask for help and still ask those questions. I mean, that's good. Larry's favorite phrase is, you know, the day you think you know everything in trucking is the day you need to hang up your keys, because we're always learning in this industry.
Oh my goodness. After all the years I've been in it, I learn something new all the time.
I think that's part of the fun of it. You know, trucking's always changing and you're always learning new things. And that's the one thing we can say about trucking. It's always a changing industry.
Yeah. The only thing that got frustrating with MECSEB is the dispatch would tell him something and he would not listen to him. And dispatch would call me, Tim, would you please call MECSEB and tell him this is okay? And it's like, well, what is he doing? Well, he's got a light out on a trailer. The other lights work. His blinkers work. His brake light works, you know, and all he needs to do is plug it back in. But he's saying, get a mechanic. And I said, well, that's kind of what I told him. Do not drive a truck if it's not safe in any form or fashion. And so I called him and I said, MECSEB, what's up? And he says, I got tail light out. They know send mechanic. I know drive truck. And I said, okay. And I said, do me a favor, pop that light out and see if it's plugged in. And the dispatch was telling him the same thing, but he wouldn't listen to him. So he popped that light out and he says, oh, it's not plugged in. I said, well, plug it back in, dude. So he plugged it back in. He says, okay, Tim, it's working. I said, well, then put it back in and get driving, trucker.
That's awesome. So we're going to take a small break real quick, Tim. And when we come back, we're going to talk about one of your funny, embarrassing moments that you and you had a similar experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll be back in just a few minutes. You're listening to Taillights with the Baums.
Mental health resources for truck drivers. Truck drivers are the backbone of America. They're the unsung heroes. Nearly every good consumed in the United States has been transported in a truck. Because of how challenging truck driving is, truck drivers often portray the image of being tough. Mental health is not a discussion that many truckers will have among each other. The truth is, truck drivers are human. They have their emotional and mental struggles just like every other working American. The only difference is that truck drivers face unique factors that put them more at risk for depression and other serious mental health issues. According to the Transport Workers Union, 1 in 5 truck drivers has experienced mental health issues. Depression and anxiety are the top mental issues that truck drivers face. Mental health resources for truck drivers. With truck drivers spending more time on the road than at home, it can be difficult to get help for their mental health struggles. Now, thanks to modern-day technology, truck drivers can get help right from their smartphones. Esper. Esper is a national behavioral health company with a mission to help people and organizations reach their full potential. Esper offers a continuum of behavioral health care from acute to chronic health conditions to leadership development, including Fit to Pass, a coaching program to assist professional drivers in maintaining good health and pass their DOT recertification physical exams. BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest e-counseling platform. They have access to licensed, trained, experienced, and accredited psychologists, marriage and family therapists, clinical social workers, and board-licensed professional counselors. To get starters, take a quick questionnaire and BetterHelp will match you with a therapist that's right for you. Mutts for Trucks. Mutts for Trucks is an organization that helps truck drivers find the perfect four-legged friend for the road. Their mission is to bring more good to a community that brings so much good to us. It's been proven that owning a dog can drastically decrease isolation, depression, and cardiovascular disease. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is a national network of local crisis centers that provides free and confidential emotional support to people in suicidal crisis or emotional distress 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their number is 1-800-287-2929. 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. If you feel that you need help for your mental health struggles while on the road, we also recommend reaching out to your carrier and seeing what options they may have available for you. For more information on mental health, go to the blog section at The Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
It's Truckers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Here we're helping drivers as they travel life's highway. I love that. The spiritual side, drivers face a lot out on the road. Truckers Life Radio digs in on the spiritual and moral questions that drivers face on a daily basis. You don't want to miss it. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Hey drivers, did you hear music on TNCRadio.live that you really liked? Or maybe you heard us interview an author of a book you'd like to read or listen to. You can get the books, music, and other products you hear about by going to our website at www.tncradio.live and clicking on the shopping cart.
And welcome back in TNCRadio.live. This is Taillights with the Baums. And now here's Larry and Angie Baum.
Welcome back, everybody. I got Larry with me. We are getting loaded, so he'll kind of be in and out of the show tonight. But we've been talking with our friend Timothy. And so, Timothy, we talked right before we went to break about sharing your one of your embarrassing moments as a truck driver, and I could totally relate to this moment, but I'll let you tell it. I thought it was hysterical.
Well, I used to run really hard back when I was with Monfort, and I was tired. My goodness, I was tired. I didn't realize how tired I was. So I stopped in Casa Grande, Arizona at the Petro, and the plan was I was going to go in and use the restroom and go get something to eat. So I'm walking in there, dragging, and it was, it might have been 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I go in there and I use the restroom. I go in the stall and I feel so much better. And I finish and I go to the sink and I wash my face and hands. I thought, well, I'll go get me something to eat and then I'll go get some sleep. And I walked out of the restroom and there's this man and woman standing there. And the husband says, "Driver, you're pretty tired, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am. I'm very tired." And he looked behind me and pointed, and I turned around and I had walked into the women's restroom. And I was so embarrassed. I did not eat. I went straight back to the truck and I went. And I didn't stop. That was one of my favorite truck stops, and I didn't stop there for a month. I was going to make sure nobody was going to recognize me.
Okay, that was a good story. I got a question about that. Was that woman's stall a lot cleaner than the guys?
I was too tired to remember, Larry. All I wanted to do was do what I needed to do, get something to eat, and go to bed.
I had that happen to me one time. Larry was stopping to fuel. It was in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m, and I was not awake. I had just woken up. I went in to go to the bathroom, and I opened up the door, and I walk in, and there's a guy washing his hands, and he looks at me, and he points at the door, and I go, "Oh, shit, sorry." I walk back out. I'm like, yeah. I was never so embarrassed in my whole life.
Yeah, and it's not like in today's market where everybody can use each other's restrooms. That was a taboo back then.
Oh, yeah.
I'm lucky I didn't get clobbered.
I have a story just like that. We were at Olive Garden, and it was like an hour wait. The lobby was packed. So I just turned around, went to the bathroom, walked into the girls' bathroom, walked in, stood, looked around, and like, okay, there's no stalls in here. And then I walked back out, and everybody in the lobby was just like staring at me.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. He's like, "Why is everybody staring at me?" I'm like, because you just came out of the ladies' restroom. Oh, my God.
I can just hear the little kid, "Look, Mommy, that woman has a beard."
Yes. Oh my goodness. So you had another interesting story that happened to you where you were actually robbed in Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Yeah, that was.
Glad you're okay.
Yeah, I am too. I was scared, and then afterwards I was mad. But I used to go to the ports up there, and this is back when I was still with Mumford. And back in those days, we had to call the receiver and get directions and all that stuff. And the security guard gave me the directions and all that, and sent me down this narrow street, and there was cars on both sides, and I was only doing like 5-10 miles an hour because it was so narrow. And all of a sudden, this guy jumps up on the side of my truck, sticks a gun right there through my window, and I roll my window down, and I had $140 in my shirt pocket because that's what it was going to cost me to unload. And he says, "Let me have your money." I said, "I got $140 right here in my pocket, and I don't have any more than that." He said, "Well, I know you've got $140. And so I handed it to him, and I didn't know what was going to happen in that next split second. He jumped off the truck and took off, and I got over there to the guard shack. I said, "Well, I just got robbed." And so I had to call Mumford and get a comm check to pay for that. And then I was telling the other guard later on, he says, "When did this happen?" I said, "About 4 o'clock this morning." He says, "We've been having a lot of that here lately." And he says, "I don't know why you were going down that street." And I said, "Well, that was the directions that the guy at the security shack gave me." And it turned out that security guard was part of it.
Oh, he was in on it?
Yeah.
He was sending the drivers to the crook.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they told me, "Dude, what you should have done was make a left right here, and it circles around to that port, and then you make a left into the gate." He says, "I don't know why they sent you down the street." He says, "Trucks aren't even supposed to be down on that street because it's so narrow." And then that's when they started figuring some things out, because I wasn't the first driver to get robbed like that.
Wow.
And so, I was scared because I didn't know what the guy was going to do. And later on, I got mad. But after that, I started taking precautions.
It's so sad that you have to do that, isn't it?
It is. And, and that was back in the 90s. Can you imagine what it's like now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It makes you wonder how long he'd been doing that and getting away with, robbing all those truckers.
Yeah. I don't know. I never did hear much about it. I had one phone call from the police department asking me questions, what the guy looked like and all that. And I gave him the description and all that. And the thing about it is, he wasn't dressed bad. He didn't look like a hoodlum. I saw him walking down the sidewalk. I noticed him, and I thought, well, why is he out at 4 o'clock in the morning? And, and next thing I know, the guy's jumping up on the side of my truck.
That is so scary. I'm glad you were okay, and I'm glad nothing, major happened, because, gosh, it could have gone so much worse.
Yeah, I had a good friend of mine. He was murdered in a rest area in Arkansas while his wife was asleep in the truck.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and he was coming out of the bathroom, and this girl had got his attention, and the guy come up behind him and stabbed him.
Oh.
And John didn't even have that much money on him.
Oh, that's awful.
While the police were trying to figure out who he was and all that, that's when they went over to the truck, and they were climbing on the truck, and that's when they woke his wife up.
Oh, my goodness. So were they team drivers?
Yeah, they were.
Oh, that's horrible.
But she was way too distraught to drive, and that's about the time that we started getting bag phones and stuff. And I got a phone call from somebody else, and they said, "Hey, where are you at?" And I said, "Well, I'm coming down through Memphis." And he says, "Turn and head toward Arkansas." And another couple was coming out of Oklahoma, and we converged right there. And then one of the guys drove the truck while his wife rode with them in their truck with the other two girls.
Oh, thank gosh you guys did that, because I'm sure there was no way she could drive after that.
But that poor woman had to sit there for 4 or 5 hours before we got there.
Oh my goodness. I couldn't even imagine.
So, and I very seldom, even to this day, I don't like to stop in rest areas.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that.
And, John, they were from Long Island, New York, of all places. They were from Long Island, New York, but they had a truck leased on with Monfort. I lived in Texas, and you want to talk about salt and pepper in the water. We were as different as could be, but we were all good friends.
I'd tell you, we've got a lot of friends like that in this industry. I'm like, I think in normal life, we probably would not get along, because we're so different, but it's amazing how trucking can bring you together with some unique people you wouldn't normally probably be friends with.
Yeah, we used to run. We would leave Greeley, Colorado, headed out to New York City, out to Hunts Point, and there'd be 10 of us running. And of course, we were known for the famous left lane.
The left lane game.
But if one truck broke down, every one of us stopped. Nobody left each other behind, and we were getting parts, tools, whatever we could, see what we could do to fix his truck.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's sad that it's not like that anymore. People don't really talk to each other when you're sitting down to eat. You don't really see that camaraderie when somebody's broken down the side of the road anymore.
Yeah. I broke down in Illinois here a few months ago, and I lost count of how many trucks blew by me.
Isn't that sad?
It is. It is really sad. And, but, in that particular case, God was watching out for me, and he provided help for me.
Absolutely. We're gonna talk about that in just a moment. We're gonna take just a quick break, and we're gonna talk about that, and then we're also gonna talk about how it's hard being a trucker out there when you've got family members that are sick at home and how you deal with that. So we're gonna take a quick break, and you are listening to Taillights with the Baums.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. 2 factory workers heard the bell for lunch, and one of the gentlemen grabs his lunch bag and tears into it and picks out his sandwich, and he unwraps the cellophane, and he excitedly peeks under the bread, and he says, peanut butter. I hate peanut butter. And he pushes his sandwich away. And his buddy looks at him, but doesn't say anything. And the next day for lunch, the bell rings, and both guys rush off to their lockers and grab their sandwiches and over to the cafeteria. And again, the one gentleman unwraps his sandwich and tears open the cellophane and peeks under the bread and says, peanut butter. I hate peanut butter. And he pushes it away and refuses to eat his lunch. But the third day comes along, and the same exact thing happens. The 2 gentlemen rush off to the cafeteria, and the first guy opens up his sandwich and peeks underneath the bread and says, peanut butter, I hate peanut butter. Slams it down this time. And by this time, his buddy looks over at him and says, hey man, this is none of my business, but why don't you tell your wife to make you something besides peanut butter for lunch? And the guy turns to him and says angrily, hey man, you leave my wife out of this. I make my own lunch. The point of this joke is that there's a saboteur that lives within us, someone who sabotages what we're trying to accomplish in life. And while I wouldn't necessarily make myself a sandwich that I don't like, I might talk myself out of asking for a raise. Or I might discourage myself from going out for the cheerleader squad. Or I might tell myself it's not worth trying to ask this girl out because she's way out of my league. In fact, we sabotage ourselves mainly for fear. Fear of rejection and fear of failure are the two biggest fears that humans have. So what do? Sometimes we have to turn that saboteur into a friend and say, don't trip me up in an effort to protect me, but help me. And if I don't make the cheerleading squad, pick me up and dust me off and tell me that I did the best I could and congratulate the other girls. And you know what? Maybe we work even harder to make next year's squad. Or maybe we decide we're going to go and play the oboe. Regardless, it's no longer necessary to sabotage my growth and my development. Maybe this time I can encourage me and learn from failures and learn from rejection.
Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is boosting the image of the industry by telling the story of trucking, and your story can be part of it. Upload a photo, tell us what you love about trucking, or send us a story about a good deed or charitable act in trucking. Be sure to follow us on social media and contact us through truckingmovesamerica.com. That's truckingmovesamerica.com.
The Hotshot Secret Facebook page gets a lot of robust Q&A about diesel problems and their solutions. We listen to our customers. Here are their words straight from their mouths about Hotshot Secret Everyday Diesel Treatment. Our fans call it EDT.
I'm John Sharp, a.k.a. Jay Sharp from Newburgh, Pennsylvania. Using EDT, my local fuel mileage went to average of 22 to 23, and my highway MPG went to 26 to 28.
Hi, I'm Danny. I'm from Arizona. I drive a 02 Ford Excursion. I use EDT at every fill-up, and my mileage went from 12.5 miles to gallon to 14 miles per gallon. I highly recommend it.
Everyday Diesel Treatment delivers a 6-in-1 premium fuel treatment for every fill-up, every time.
Everyday Diesel Treatment is available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Taillights with the Baums. We've been talking with Timothy, and right before we went to the break, you were talking about how recently you had a breakdown. You want to tell everybody a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was the first one was about 4 months ago. I had just got my truck out of the shop a month before that with the engine getting rebuilt. And I was on Interstate 72 in Illinois headed west. And all of a sudden, temperatures, check lights started coming on. I opened the hood, and I had lost my belts, and my truck was overheating and all that. And so I was probably about 10 miles from Jacksonville, Illinois. And I called this repair shop over there at Jacksonville, and he told me, he says, if you can get me the belt numbers, he says, I can probably get them for you. And so I called the Freightliner dealership there in Springfield. And so he says, yeah, we got the belts, but we close at midnight. And I thought, well, shoot, I don't really have the money to pay for a service call, so I'm just going to start hitchhiking back that way. And at that time, I had been real angry and bitter because I was struggling so much. And so the first couple miles, I was telling God how terrible of a God he was, and I don't know why he's making me suffer the way he is, and all these things keep happening, and then about the third or fourth mile, all I could hear was, just let it go, give it to me, let it go, give it to me, And so I started doing that. I said, okay, you can have it all. And about the fifth mile, I said, well, God, I'm going to let you have all that, but I could really use some help right now. And about 5 minutes later, that service guy that I had called, he says, dude, you never did call me back. And I said, well, I took off walking. I'm trying to get back to Springfield. They've got the belts, but I didn't get the belt numbers. And I'm going to try to hitchhike back over there and get the parts that I need to get my truck fixed. He says, where are you at? And I said, I'm about the 58-mile marker now. He says, man, it's snowing and it's cold. He says, I'll be out there in a minute. That man, his name is Dennis Collier. he drove out there and picked me up, took me back to his shop, filled his truck up. He says, take my truck to Springfield, get the parts that you need, and go fix your truck, and then come back and get me. And he says, do you have enough money to get the belt tensioner also? And I said, yeah, I have enough money to get that. I just don't have enough money to pay for a service call. He says, go get your stuff, but I recommend you replace the belt tensioner because the belts may come off again in 50 miles. So I got my belts, got my tensioner, got some antifreeze, loaded everything up, drove back out to my truck, repaired the truck, got done about 9 o'clock that night. And I drove back to his shop, and he was in his office. He was doing some paperwork, and he says, you about ready? And I said, yes, sir. On the way back out there, I said, Dennis, you do this for a living. Why did you decide to help me this way? He says, well, you seem like a good guy, and it looked like you were down on your luck, and you could really use some kindness. And I said, yeah. I said, I just asked God for help, and you called me 5 minutes later, and you did what you did. And
wow.
That little act of kindness changed my life. I no longer look down. I'm no longer bitter, and I'm no longer angry.
That's amazing. And that is so amazing that he did that. I mean, God, if this world had more people like that, wouldn't it be such a better place?
Yeah. And I told him, I said, if I can ever be of any help to you, keep my number and please call me. If I'm coming this way, and if you need parts picked up in a state, and if I'm in that area, I will pick them up and bring them to you at no charge.
That's awesome. Well, and, speaking of having a hard time lately, I know one of the things you've been having a really hard time with, and I kind of want, the last part of the show, I want you to talk about, you've got a pretty amazing brother who him and his wife are just going through an incredibly hard time right now. And we're trying to do a little campaign to get some cards to them. But can you tell us a little bit about your brother and sister-in-law and a little bit about what's happening?
Yeah, my brother is a 23-year Army veteran. He's a 27-year retired deputy sheriff. And he served his country well. And he retired as a sergeant major of the Army. And while he was still a deputy sheriff, he got diabetes. And he progressively got worse. So he finally took his retirement, and him and his wife decided they wanted to travel and all that. Well, 4 months into retirement, he had a stroke. And then a couple months later, he had another stroke. And then as that progressed worse, he lost one of his, he lost the eyesight in his left eye, I believe. And he lost the use of his right arm. His shoulder and everything is just tight. When you have a stroke, all kinds of bad things happen. Well, then he started having some real bad stomach pains. And so he went to the doctor. He went to the VA, and the VA told him that it was going to cost him so much for each treatment. He says, I'm a veteran. And it was going to cost him like $4,300. I want to make sure I get the facts right. I may be wrong on that. But they told him that it was going to be like $4,300 a treatment. He says, I'm a veteran. I earned this. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, if you'll get disability and all that, we can help you more. He says, no, I'm not disabled. I'm still functioning. There's other veterans that lost arms, eyes, legs that need that more than I do, and I don't want to take a chance on taking anything away from them. But they diagnosed him with stage 4 advanced colon cancer. And now he's to the point where he's pretty much bedridden. Well, during this process of them finding out about my brother, my sister-in-law started getting some pains up in her breast and all that, so she went to the doctor. Well, she has breast cancer, and it's a very aggressive cancer, and she started doing, it took them 4 months to decide to start doing chemotherapy, and it was through their Tricor insurance. It took them 4 months to approve it. So she started doing chemo, and she took her last chemo treatment April 11th, next week they're doing a double mastectomy on her. She's arranged for some church friends to come and sit with my brother and bring food and all that to help him, because my brother's pretty much bedridden.
Right.
And she during all of her chemo treatments, she's been taking care of my brother. She sleeps for like 2 hours at a time and gets up every 2 hours to make sure my brother's still breathing. And my brother's now in hospice. And they were doing the chemo, and the doctor told him the chemo is killing you. It's not doing you any good. So they opted out of the chemo, and he went into hospice. And so you can imagine the medical bills and everything are just piling up on them.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, but, you know, I told him, I said, I'm going to do whatever I can to help you, you know, and we've done all kinds of things, sewed plates. I got him a wheelchair. When he does get out of bed, they put him in a wheelchair. So I got him a wheelchair and all that. And so, you know, he says, I don't know what we're going to do. You know, we bought this house and all this stuff, and I've got my retirement and all this, but it's all going toward medical bills. You know, and he says, and I'm going to, if I die, Marcy's not going to have anything. And I said, I told my sister-in-law and my brother, I said, I'm going to make you guys this promise right now. I will never leave my sister-in-law alone. I will make sure that I will help her any way I can. I will help both of you any way I can. So, and I'm doing everything that I know to do, you know, and I've got some other people that are helping with the campaign, getting the words out. And I thought, you know, it would really do them good if they got cards and letters from people they don't even know, encouraging them and uplifting them, because, you know, sometimes that does wonders for people.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk all about how people can send them cards, because we have a husband and a wife that are suffering right now with their health. He is retired Army veteran and a sheriff. She was just diagnosed with breast cancer. So if there's anything we can do to try to make their day a little bit better, we're going to talk to you about how you guys can send cards to try to maybe brighten their day. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Taillights with the Baums.
As a professional driver, the engineers at Frontlane know that you remain focused on the road regardless of weather and traffic.
This info blog on tncradio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 3 simple tips to improve your CSA score. There are millions of drivers on the road every day. That's why trucking companies must stay compliant with federal safety regulations. Staying compliant with federal safety regulations not only helps keep yourself and others on the road safe, but also helps improve your safety scores. A good CSA score is extremely important to the success of a trucking company. Drivers that have a good score have access to preferred loads and reduced insurance rates. Here's some tips on how to improve your CSA score. What is the CSA program? CSA, Compliance, Safety, Accountability, is a program of the FMCSA that holds truck drivers accountable for their role in safety. The main goal of the CSA program is to prevent accidents from happening on the road and to identify high-risk commercial motor carriers. Although the FMCSA runs the CSA program, they don't issue CSA scores. The FMCSA created an online safety measurement system that records data like roadside inspections and crash reports from the last 2 years. The data is updated monthly and assigned to your DOT number. The FMCSA then organizes the SMS data into 7 categories, often referred to as basics: behavior, analysis, and safety improvement. How to improve your CSA score? When it comes to CSA scores, the lower the scores, the better. Your CSA score determines whether or not you'll get a visit from the DOT. Over time, your CSA score can be improved by making safety a core focus of your trucking company. Prioritize pre-trip inspections. A large percentage of CSA violations are truck-related. This could all be prevented with a pre-trip inspection. Pre-trip inspections are one of the most important things you need to do before any trip. A simple pre-trip inspection helps you get in tune with your truck before you drive. It lets you know if anything's wrong with the truck or needs to be fixed before hitting the road. Not only are you required by law to perform a pre-trip inspection, but it also keeps you and others safe while on the road. Check out our blog, 4 Reasons Why Pre-Trip Inspections Are Important for Truck Drivers. Be more cautious of who you hire. Hiring drivers with a good driving record is crucial if you want to have a good CSA score. Remember that CSA scores use your driver's crash records to calculate your score. So if you hire a driver with a bad driving history, you're taking on more of a risk. Challenge citations. You have at least 2 years to challenge a violation. If you challenge a violation and it gets dismissed, it'll be removed from your company's CSA score. The Truckers Network has teamed up with CDL Consultants and CDL 360 to provide a full spectrum of safety, compliance, and audit services to our members. CDL Consultants has successfully reduced or dismissed over 35,000 violations and tickets. They've worked with tens of thousands of drivers and companies, including many top 100 carriers. If you need to fight a violation, search for a CDL Consultant on the Truckers Network webpage at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Join Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time for Women Road Warriors on your driver navigation station, tncradio.live.
Hot Shots Secret presents Steve Summers' Overnight Drive nightly at midnight Eastern, 11 Central on tncradio.live or download the app .tncradio.live.
Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Taillights with the Baums, and we've been talking with Timothy tonight. And right before the break, he was telling you a little bit about the situation that his brother and sister-in-law, Larry and Marcy, are going through. And before I let you talk for a second, Timothy, I did want to say that there is a Facebook page set up if you guys are interested in getting to know a little bit more about Larry and Marcy. You can find it simply by just going to Facebook and typing in Larry and Marcy. And it's a little Facebook group that they've set up so you can learn more about them. And so did you want to tell everybody a little bit about the card campaign that you're trying to do?
Yeah, I got with Candace and Lisa on 32 Truckers a Day, and they started blasting it. We had a live on Sunday, gave them all the addresses and stuff, and they started blasting it. They're helping us out. Perry and Jessica, the Kentucky Truckers, they're helping us. They're getting the word out to send cards and letters, putting the address and everything where they can send uplifting cards and letters of encouragement to them. And I gave you the address a while ago. If you would like to give them that address, that's fine.
Absolutely. So if you guys would like. If you guys would like to send a card to Larry and Marcy at the address, and I'm going to put this also on my Facebook page, Married to the Road, but it's Larry and Marcy, and it's going to be 4018 Roland Terrace, and that's in Spring, Texas. The zip code is 77388, and I'll give it again in just a few minutes.
And I really appreciate all the kindness that has already been displayed, and everyone that's trying to help. It really means a lot to them and to myself and to my family that there are people that don't even know them that are showing care and love for them.
I saw the pictures of your brother from his time in the Army and also his time in the police department, and you hate to hear the fact that he finally just retired after serving his country and serving as a police officer, and then to get sick so quickly, and then for his wife to get sick at the same time it's so sad. And I hate the fact that you're having issues with the VA as well. Yeah,
and Lisa is doing some research on that. She has enlightened us on some things, and I talked to my brother and sister yesterday, and they weren't even aware of that because every rep that they've talked to have told them the same thing. And see, when my brother got out of the Army, that was when Desert Storm was going on. So he when he got out of the Army, it was still a wartime situation. So he should have been service connected. And these guys he made something of himself. He accomplished some things, and this is the way the VA is doing him.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if anybody is good to Lisa is a wonder when it comes to anything having to do with the VA. She's actually helping Larry and I with Larry's veteran status. So she's a good person to work with. Yeah,
she's a firecracker.
So. She is. I'm part of 32 Truckers a Day, and her and Candace, they're a hoot.
Oh, those two, they have all my respect for what they're doing for the drivers and stuff. And I've become a part of that organization. And I told them, I said, if you have drivers that are having a hard time and they need somebody to talk to, forward my number to them. I will be glad to talk to them.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I did want to mention before we get ready to close out the show that coming up next, we have Anderson and Banker with Clutch Time Sports. They're coming on next. But also, Thursday night, Lisa and Candace have their very own show. It's going to be on here tomorrow night. And so be sure to listen to that. I believe it's at 7 p.m. Central. Is that right, Tom?
In for the long haul. That's right. 7 p.m. Central.
Yeah. So be sure to listen. They're going to have their very first show tomorrow night. I might pop in there with them for a little bit and listen to that. And Timothy, I want to give that address one more time. So if anybody wants to send cards to Larry and Marcy, this would really help uplift them, especially because, Larry was a veteran. He also was a police officer for 27 years. He served our country in so many ways. And now him and his wife are suffering so badly. You can actually go to Facebook and look up Larry and Marcy to get information and join the Facebook group there. Or you can send cards to Larry and Marcy, 4018 Roland Terrace, Spring, Texas, 77388. And I'll have that again up on our Married to the Road page right after this show.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping us with this.
Oh, absolutely, Tim. I wish I could do more. And like I said earlier, I've had the best time with you tonight, and we are definitely going to have you back on here because what you guys don't know is when I was talking to him earlier, I was like, so tell me some great stories from over the road. He goes, I don't think I've had a very interesting life. And then he just started telling me all these stories. I'm like, are you kidding? You've had a great, interesting life.
Yeah, one of these days I'll tell you about my breakfast with Eddie Rabbit.
Yes, I have that written down so I can talk about it next time because I do want to talk about that.
Really great guy.
I bet he was. He was one person I would always love to meet. Well, we're going to go ahead and close tonight, but thank you so much, Timothy, for being on here. And I'm going to get you scheduled back on here really soon. And everybody, be safe out there, and we'll see you next Wednesday for Taillights with the Baums.